today we're going to be talking about frequently asked questions, particularly within the realm of publicity and social media. And we get asked these pretty frequently. I'd say sometimes on a weekly basis, depending on the season. Yeah, Audrey, you want to start?
Okay, I had to read my list to Caitlin earlier because I'm the keeper of the list today, and I couldn't read my own handwriting the first time, so that was kind of weird. Okay, first topic, how do I respond to social media posts as an author? Say someone is sharing something on Instagram, a picture of my book they got in the mail, or is sharing on Facebook or something like that, and tags me. How should I react? Well, I guess number one, should I respond? Two, how should I respond? And three, is there such thing as, yeah, I really shouldn't do that?
Yeah.
That's cases where I really shouldn't do that.
Yeah. So I would say err on the side of graciousness whenever it comes to, thanking someone, responding to someone tagging you in something. I think that as a reader or as a blogger or something like that, that I would appreciate it if an author not only said thank you for sharing, about my book, thank you for reviewing my book, but actually the author has taken the time to maybe look at some of my other posts that I've done. And really, it's just all about how personal can you make the response. I think that makes the best response possible. So when you have the time to be able to do that, that is the best route to go. I do think that a quick, thank you is always good if you don't have time to, go through 100 Instagram tags or whatever it is. Err on the side of thankfulness and graciousness. Other than that, though, there are some things that you kind of want to steer away from. And I think that could be asking for more personal information. Sometimes we have authors who do that and they want to gather email addresses or something like that. And to me, that comes across as kind of fishing a little bit. I would also say don't try to sell your book in your responses. Very similar to what we talked about last week with publicity in terms of, you don't need to oversell your book. You're already on a radio program for some reason, and more than likely you are also on someone else's social media post for another reason, and that reason is the book. They've already read it or they're looking forward to reading it. So you don't need to name drop your book. You don't need to hashtag a million things in your responses. That's kind of all I have.
I would say that liking is great. Clicking little hearts on Instagram, liking the post, on Facebook, saying a simple thank you or something like that is great on Facebook. A retweet, sometimes on Twitter, all you have to do is simply retweet. That's all that's needed. You don't have to reply. You can like it or retweet it. Sometimes it just gets awkward. I think if you comment too much, but just even a like or a heart or something like that is acknowledging and kind of a thank you enough that you just don't you don't have to spend a lot of time on replying back. People absolutely love it when they see that an author just like I said even likes that, or that's just an acknowledgement that you saw it and that you appreciate it, and that can be enough. So
I agree. It just kind of depends on how much time you have and how much time you're willing to put into something like that.
But it is good, and we want to say it is good to put time into it. It just doesn't have to become your all day. And I think that's something that authors come to us and sometimes, have a problem with it's like, I've got all this going on and I feel overwhelmed because I need to do this. Well, yeah, there's some things that yes, you do need to do, but it doesn't need to necessarily consume your life or consume all of your time.
Right.
You don't have to feel like it's something that you have to spend tons of time doing.
Yeah.
And kind of along those lines, do I have, as an author, or even you can apply this to a blogger, because we want bloggers to be able to share their stuff via social media. Do you have to do every kind of social media there is?
My number one thing that I always tell authors who come to me with questions about that is that I would rather you do one platform and do it really well than to spread yourself thin over a bunch of platforms that you can't keep up with, and then they slowly die off and you kind of lose the fire underneath you to create good content for those social media platforms. So no, you don't have to be on every single platform. There are some people who are, which is great, and they do it well. But I would say find what works for you in terms of how you think, how you like to share things online. That's number one. And number two is think in terms of your audience. Are they slightly older? A lot of them probably live on Facebook if that's the case. If they skew younger, you might want to check out Twitter, Instagram. And again, I think it's especially important with Instagram that if you're going to do Instagram, you need to do it well. And that means having a great camera. Unfortunately, that's just what it means nowadays. You want your content to be able to stick out in the midst of a lot of really great polished content. So those are kind of my 2 cents and my 2 reasons of how you want to determine what social media platforms you want to be on. And again, you don't have to be on all of them. Just pick 1 or 2 and do them really well. And once you get the hang of it, you can always expand.
Okay, I'm going to throw a question in here that we didn't talk about ahead of time. We went through our list, but I didn't have this one on there. How about those people that say, I don't understand Twitter? Can you, in 2 minutes, explain Twitter? Because people say, I just don't understand it. I'm not sure if there's a lot to understand, really. But, yeah. So, explain Twitter in 2 minutes and why you think it's important.
I think for me, the easiest way to think about it is that it's kind of a direct line to people that you wouldn't necessarily always have a direct line to. So for instance, let's say that, who could I use for an example? Max Lucado. Let's say that you just read Max Lucado's newest book and you loved it, and you would love to send him a note or an email or something like that, but you're afraid that it's going to get lost. So to me, the best way to be able to communicate very quickly with someone else is to send them a tweet. And I think that it's completely appropriate for people to send tweets like that, because that's what Twitter was built for. It was built for making connections with people that you probably wouldn't otherwise have their phone number, have their email address. And certainly there are teams, like I'm sure Max Lucado has a team that mans his Twitter and responds for him. However, you kind of still get the same sort of feel that, if he or his team member responds, they've at least seen it. So that's kind of the best way that I can describe Twitter. It's very much more casual too than a lot of the other social media platforms. And I feel like you can put slightly wittier, slightly funnier, even some more mundane stuff on there, just because people like that sort of thing. Yeah, so I don't know. Does that help answer your question?
Oh, I think it does. And I think people use it in different ways. I mean, I use Twitter some, not as conscientious, I would say, probably in some ways, as and I feed different things through it. But when I'm most active on Twitter is when people are into certain TV shows, or, you know, or it can be like the Super Bowl or the World Series or something like that. It's a great place for conversation with tons of people that may be like-minded as you, because it works more off the hashtag than other platforms. So, like on Monday nights while I'm watching The Bachelor, I'm all about the live tweet and getting retweets and having conversations and being snarky and that kind of thing. Yeah. So I think it's just kind of used in different ways sometimes. So, yeah. Anyway, just ran through out on.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Okay. All right. Kind of along the same lines. How much is too many? Like, if you have a Facebook page, what's a good number of shares per day? We kind of talked about this a little bit in previous videos, but how much is too much, and what percentage should be promotion of those, and what should be more just more casual? I mean, definitely thought out, but doesn't have to be strictly promotional on, like, let's say Facebook.
Yeah. I would say that across any platform, you should try to be sharing at least once a day. And that goes for anything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, whatever it is. LinkedIn, if that's your jam. No, we have a joke about that.
Yeah, we have a joke.
But yeah,
that may be a whole other video someday.
Yeah, no joke. I do think that it is important, though, to try to post once a day, because, for instance, when I go to someone else's profile on whatever social media platform it might be, if I see that they haven't updated it in a month, I'm not going to follow them. I recognize that they don't put much priority on updating that platform. So to me, it's not worth hitting that follow button. So I would say at the minimum, once a day. Just remember, though, that you don't want to overshare on places like Facebook and Instagram, because, I mean, those two are now owned by Facebook, obviously, and we have seen a trend throughout the past 4 years of those platforms putting more of an emphasis on quality over quantity. And so they want to see that you are putting out content that, number one, will keep people on the app itself or on the website itself, and that also that people engage with, and they are willing to hit that like button, they're willing to hit that comment button and type out a response. So I would just say be mindful of that. If you're just starting out, try to post once a day on every platform. You can build up to 2, 3, even 4 on Facebook, I would say. Probably 2 to 3 on Instagram is kind of the maximum for me anyways, because if I see people posting too much content on there, it gets old. And with Twitter's kind of a different animal.
Yeah, Twitter, definitely I would say is a different animal, because of the nature of it. Yeah. But the thing on Instagram too is now you can share multiple pictures at one time. So if there's several things that you want to share, you can do it all in one post.
Yeah.
Good point. And not have to, like in the past, you'd have to post 6 pictures, and instead of 6 pictures, you can now post it as a single post and go through. So you could do it that way. But if you're posting multiple times on Facebook, just be careful with your variety, and every post does not need to be your promotional post. Mm-hmm. People are following you because they're interested to say, but if everything becomes promotional and they know that everything is promotional, every time you post, you're gonna end up losing people by unfollowing and that kind of thing too. So just be mindful, share some great content, but remember, people following you know who you are, so you don't have to be really obvious in your promotional parts.
Right. And I think that a good ratio is that for every 3 or even 4 like personal posts that you do, then you can post something promotional. Social media is social. So let's say that you have a friend who sells, I don't know if I should name a specific makeup brand, but like something that you sell from home. And that's all that she ever wants to talk to you about in real life. You're not going to want to hang out with her anymore because she's always pushing those products on you and there's no real relationship there. And social media works in the same way, people realize that you are an author, that you are a blogger, whatever it might be. And so they are looking to learn more about you and to learn more about your life, and they're nosy. Like they want to know stuff about you that they wouldn't be able to figure out from your book. Certainly, yeah, you do want to promote your book because you wrote it. You should be proud of it. But
there is an extent that you do need to do that. You just don't need to do it every post.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you can post 4 times without mentioning the fact that you have a book, then you can kind of, focus the next post or whatever it might be on your book.
Because people that are following you know you wrote a book.
Yeah.
They probably wrote a book. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway. Also, this has nothing to do with anything. When I'm listening to Caitlin, I'm like really listening and paying attention to Caitlin, and I'm afraid what my facial expression is because freeze frames have gotten me the past few weeks where it looks like I'm really miffed at something and I'm not. Or that I'm rolling my eyes at Caitlin and I'm really not. I don't know if y'all have caught that. But of course, it comes up, like, hey, would you like to boost this post? Or, hey, this is, getting lots of views and stuff. And I'm getting used to seeing myself in my face in the Facebook feed. And anyway, sometimes I'm just like, oh, do I look, on screen? So anyway, see me making faces. It's just so I don't like have some weird, expression. Okay. And Caitlin, we may save some of these questions. I think we may save some of these for next week because you know how time flies.
I do.
But let's one more for today. We've talked a bunch about social media and the importance of social media, but how important is it these days for someone, even though they have all the social media to connect with people, to have a home base website? Because we have, had this question before and have seen some new authors that don't have that in place. How important is it today to have an online home?
I saw someone the other day describe it this way, that social media is rented space. You don't own your social media. It's owned by a company. It's owned by Facebook. It's owned by Twitter, whatever it may be. But your website and your newsletter are your own. And so I feel like over the past probably 5 years, we saw this huge emphasis on websites, blogs, whatever it might be, like 5 years ago. And then as social media became this absolute giant phenomenon where people basically live on it, I feel like we started to kind of see a decline in the number of blog posts that people were promoting, and the general website updates. And as social media grew and became bigger, and those companies were figuring out that they could, make money by withholding some of that organic reach that you would normally have not had to deal with 5 years ago, people have slowly started to realize that they need to kind of migrate back toward updating their websites, updating their blogs on a daily, weekly basis, whatever it might be. And so Yeah. Um, when when I go to search for an author, the first thing that I look for is their website, because their website should have everything that I need to know about them, their books, and any of their social media platforms that they might be on. So to me, website is first, it's primary, and secondary, then that's kind of when I go and look to see what their social media is like, what their social media presence is like online. So um, yeah, just remember your website is your own, and so is your newsletter too. I think that's a different category in and of itself. But yeah, I would just say,
That's a whole other week's discussion too.
yeah.
The topic of news. Well, yeah, definitely. You want to have an online home that it's, how much are you really telling on, Facebook? I think, when you share links on Facebook, they should, some of them should go back to your website where they can find out more about you. But say you are a person that, and I don't mean that, and I don't mean this bad, but if your Facebook, and we've been talking about being personal and sharing things that you're interested in, think you're funny and that kind of thing. We could kind of get your sense of humor if you share like cat videos or, but they could be, I mean, there's some really funny cat videos out there. So I'm not knocking all cat videos. Don't mean anything like that. But what does that necessarily say about you? You get so little in each like social media share about somebody. What can they really find out about you? And like, okay, I read her latest book or his latest book, but this is my first time to read John Smith. What else does he have out there?
Mm-hmm.
You want people to be able to go and find that in one place. And it's like, do you really want people to depend on Amazon as the place to get all of their information?
Mm-hmm.
You definitely, you need to have an author page set up there and definitely want your books there. But how do you want people to really find all the information they need to know about you? And sometimes it's hard because, people re-release books for any number of reasons, hardcover, softcover, that kind of thing. If people want to figure out what order to read your past books,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have a place that has all that information on it too. So,
also
the different.
from a publicity stance too, it's kind of nice to be able to have a page where people can hear, a radio interview with you that they might have missed, or read a guest post or something that you wouldn't normally post about on your, social media or on your own blog, but you wrote about this specific topic for this very niche website. And so I think that's important too.
I mean, you can include excerpts from your book, where people can get a chance to read it. Sometimes you can on Amazon and sometimes you can't. And most of the time, people aren't sharing excerpts on Twitter. Definitely not sharing excerpts on Twitter. But, it's kind of hard, okay, here's my new book. And I'm just picking up a book that's on my desk. I mean, so if you see the cover, it's anyway. And I take a picture of it and share it on Instagram. That's not going to give, necessarily, it could be a really pithy, great quote, but, you're not going to post like a whole excerpt where people can really get a feel for your book when you're doing it on Instagram. So there's lots of things that you can do through your website that are still good to have that social media just can't cover. So
yeah.
Anyway, real important to have those.
I also think that, and this is something that I was thinking about while we were talking, but something that we haven't mentioned was also video. Places like YouTube, again, YouTube's kind of a rented space, again, if you will, because it is a social media platform. But like if you were to upload a video or something like that to Vimeo, you can always embed something like that onto your website. And I think that just gives people another way to see you, because a lot of times we don't hear authors' voices. Because we live in such a big world, we don't ever get to meet people. We don't go to their book signings or anything like that. And so that's another great thing about your website too, is that it has a ton of capabilities that, you know, some other platforms might not have. Certainly you can post videos and everything on pretty much every social media platform at this point, but it is nice that if you were to embed a video onto your website, like it can live there for a few weeks, and anybody who lands on your homepage can see it. It's not going to get lost in your feed or something like that.
Right.
Whew.
So I think covered lots of good information today. You want to tease some questions for next week?
Yeah.
And people can submit more questions along these lines. Okay. So what we're going to talk about next week, things like what does a publicist do versus what does an agent do? Because sometimes people think those kind of cross over, or speaking, like a speaking agent, book agent, publicist. Really, they're pretty distinct jobs, and kind of what to expect and what those each job kind of does. We're going to also get into some things. What do you really need to make sure you do if you self-publish? Some important things that we think are really top on our list if you decide that's an avenue you want to pursue.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, as Audra said, if you guys have any other questions, please submit those. It doesn't have to be about any particular topic that we've spoken about today. If you have a different question for us, let us know. We're happy to cover it in future videos. And let's see, anything else?
I think that's it on my end.
Yeah. So we will see you guys here again next week with another live chat covering those questions that Audra just talked about. And we will be back at 12:30 Central Time, which is 1:30 Eastern, 10:30 Pacific.
Happy Valentine's Day, and share these videos, especially if you're entertained in any way, arbitrary on the Olympics or otherwise.
All right. Yes. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.